Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I'm formally welcoming you to all this session. I, Atharva Kulkarni, I will be moderating today's session. I will request the audience to keep their microphones on mute unless you want to ask a question. Hi, sir. It is a pleasure to connect with you virtually. Um, Before we start this session, I would like to give a small introduction about this speaker. Pudi Ravikrishna is the Director of Design at Airmeet. He is a software product designer with over 15 years of experience in user experience design. He studies the domain, synthesizes customers' needs, benchmarks against the best, and recommends the product vision to drive user engagement and achieve business outcomes. He has worked with some of the senior leaders of technology and product around the globe and believes in nurturing the best talent and instilling the process to create high impact of design teams. He possesses a good understanding of banking and financial services, marketing, retail, and healthcare verticals. We are glad to have you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you for joining me in this session. I'm very excited to be a part of this. And I really would have loved to interact with you in your campus. Maybe that will save it for the future. For today's session, I would be talking about my experiences over the past 6 months during the lockdown. It's more of a personal journey. It's nothing related to design per se, but this is something that I wanted to share it with young people. This presentation is a tribal concern. What is it that I have learned over the past 6 months, right? So, briefly introducing myself, I grew up in a small town called Sunabeda in the southern part of Odisha. Now, this is a very remote area uh, where there was a public sector undertaking called Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which manufactured MiG 21 engines. My father was from Andhra Pradesh, and he moved there for employment, and he had stayed there for almost 40 years. And all of my schooling and education was done there until my class 12. This was an area which had dense forests, lush green fields all around, plenty of water, and there was tribal communities, indigenous communities, which who inhabited the forests or the hills surrounding our township. So it was a very pleasant childhood. Post which I did my engineering between 95 to 99. Then worked as a software developer, and then for the past 20 years I have been working as a designer, right? But this 1 hour is not about my journey in design, but rather it is a journey which or something 20 years before 2000. When the lockdown was announced in March, all of us were forced into our homes, not even allowed to go outside. So I happened to visit my family in Andhra Pradesh. I stay in Bangalore, and I was almost trapped in that village. I just about managed to get a taxi and drive back to my sister's place in Rajahmundry. Now, for the past 6 or 8 months, I have been here with her, not wanting to travel during this time. But those initial weeks were stressful, right? So, trying to handle that claustrophobia of sitting at home and not having anything to do at all. Uh, I happen to be reminiscing my childhood memories, reading Enid Blyton novels, watching the famous five adventures on television, and then reading comic books. So we had a very good life, I would say. I remember Saturday afternoons were more adventurous. Us boys taking our bicycles and venturing off on the outskirts of our township into the fields. So what was it like? So this is how it would look like. So I borrowed photographs from the internet so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. So as compared to a city, uh, this is like living in paradise. Like there were times when we would venture off closer to a village on the away from the road, and we would encounter some open fields with a buffalo skull, and we would try to imagine stories or create cook up stories about some thrill or adventure. But the life in township was very pleasant. So this is a road which had jacaranda flowers blooming, and you can see the road is all painted blue, and we would pick fruits directly from the trees. And uh, I one childhood memory was a tribal who would visit our township once a week, sitting under this giant red tree, and he would wait there until someone purchases his coal, and then by evening he would not be seen. So the drawing in the middle is something I drew from memory in my childhood. Somehow I have managed to save it all these years. So it is the response of a child looking at his personal experiences. So the COVID was a time to again reflect, right? So I instinctively started to draw, and this was a story that I drew from memory again. My journey away from the township to outside of India, or to other states for my studies. So I remember the green hills, the rain, and playing under the trees. And this was the story of the tribals, their self-sufficiency. So they make a mahua drink from the fruits of a certain tree, and then they ferment it, and then they make a drink of it, which is shared with the rest of the folks. So this was something I just drew with watercolors, which are available in the nearby shop. But I started to wonder what happened to the tribals, right? So post 2000, my father retired in 2005. That was the last time I went to that place. Post that, I've been living in cities. So what I was wondering was what happened to them, the tribals? Did they fare better, or did they were they engulfed again by development, or what really happened to them? So I was trying to study more about them, specifically about the tribes which who surrounded our township. So I discovered that Odisha has the largest number of tribes in India, about 62 tribes. So I was surprised that the township that I lived in had 3 to 4 tribes on the periphery. So I was trying to understand which was the tribe, and as I dug deeper, I found a lot more information than I could consume. So one dominant thing is the tribals are nature worshippers, and all their gods are natural elements. So you have the earth goddess, you have the mountain, the stream, everything is a god, and all of them are worshipped and taken care of. So a typical village would have a sacred grove where all the sacred plants are planted and taken care of. It sort of becomes the temple. So the nature or the forest or the mini forest created there is the place where they would go to for their religious ceremonies, and even all. This is a practice which exists not just in Odisha, across all tribal communities in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Northeast, and across Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh. So as I understood them better, I realized that they existed in harmony with nature, right? So they subsisted on the produce of the forest, along with agriculture by clearing up small patches of land in the forest itself. So they were self-sufficient by all means, their water, their food. their medicine, everything. So this is one instance where the siali leaves are collected by these tribals, and then they stitch them up as leaf plates and sell it off to the nearest town, from where most restaurants, it is shipped across India, where restaurants typically used to serve food on these plates. So this is a very eco-friendly way of doing business, I would say, where the environment is never harmed. So this is another instance where the tribals, whenever they need anything for their own self, which they can't have access to, that is something they get it in exchange. So more than cash, they would prefer something in kind. So like making brooms and selling them, or growing vegetables and selling them in the nearest market. So one, they also have their own crafts, and then religious ceremonies. So one craft which I found closest to the place where I grew up was called Dhan Murti, which is Dhan means paddy in Odia. And then they use bamboo strips and threads to tie these paddy to the strip, and then they create any art object, right? So these objects are objects of worship. So their belief is that these are their gods. So you would have their own tribal deities. This is another instance of the same. So what triggered me was that I had used threads 3 years back to do an art exploration. So I said this looks like a continuum of that. In addition to the thread, now I have the additional constraint that I would not use any manufactured material. I would just use a very eco-friendly material. So I borrowed from the tribals, and for the first time in 90 days I ventured out of my home to the market. I bought the siali leaves, the leaf plates, and broomsticks and cotton threads. And uh, one thing which dawned on me was that for a tribal, the leaf is a currency in itself. So you have something like tendu leaves, just like the siali leaves is used for leaf plates. Tendu leaf is used for making rolling beedies. So most of them would collect the tendu leaves during the season, and the money that they earn from that sustains them for the entire year, along with other means like collecting produce from the forest, growing their own vegetables, and growing their own cereals. So I borrowed from this, and then I cut 100 siali leaves to create a standard bundle of an RBI note. So I used the size of a 500 rupee note, and this is the uh, final thing that emerged. So it's a tedious process of 2 days of just sitting and cutting leaves. And in terms of presentation, I named it as precious. My intention was that nature has to be guarded, and it is one of the most important assets that we should preserve and take care of. That was my intention here. But having read through so many articles and so many news clippings and so many videos, when I went to sleep, this is what came in my dream. It is cherry cheese pineapple. So it is a side dish usually served with beverage in a restaurant. So it could possibly be that I was missing Bangalore and its pubs. But nonetheless, I was initially taken aback that I wanted to create a very serious art, and this is what came in my dream. But I went ahead and said that maybe I should just create it, just for the sake of play. And yeah, okay. So I used coconut broomstick to create the frames, tie them. Can you hear me now? Okay, sure. Thanks. And the sphere was a bit of a challenge because I had to create a three-dimensional structure. I had to learn how to work with the coconut broomstick, how much of it is easily bendable, and which part of it doesn't really bend and is very stiff. And I didn't have enough space either. I'm staying with my sister. Then in the balcony, I just put this together. And the CLE leaves, I first stitch them over the frame with thread. And then the leaves are bound together using the grass which the tribals use. It is called sabari grass, I believe. And then the toothpick was nothing but the coconut stem, leaf of the stem. So it was all uh, uh, produce that I got from the garden around me itself. Uh, so then photographing it over the terrace and cleaning it up. So this was an initial exploration. So it is not tidy as such, but what it enabled me is that I always thought two-dimensional, but suddenly because of this exercise, I am now thinking three-dimensional. So again, there was another childhood game. I believe most of us would have played this in our primary school, lemon and spoon. This was a period when you have plenty of time, right? So May, June, July, you're not doing anything. So I said, okay, if it has come, then I'll just create it. By now, I had become very uh, adept at bending the bamboo, the coconut broomstick. And the only thing was I had to wait for 5 days for that coconut leaf to drop from the tree. I couldn't climb it up. And then once I had the structure in place, then I wrapped the leaves all around. And so this is a patient exercise. It is also a meditative exercise, I would say. And the scale you can judge from the bottom photographs. So it was I mean, I was starting to enjoy this now, where I'm not trying to make very deep thinking or trying to make very dramatic statements, but something which is superlative and easy and also fun to do. So this is how it transpired. Now, as I understood more, I enrolled into a course in Indira Gandhi National Center of Arts for 3 months. It was around folklore and intangible cultural heritage. The drive for that was I was trying to get deeper understanding and saying that what is the field which would help me get a more in-depth understanding, right? How it's partly anthropological and it's also partly cultural understanding. So the I understood the tribal society equates women to be equal with men. They have very high independence. They can choose their own partner, and at any point, if they are unhappy, they can leave the partner. So they are very independent women. Um, so one ornament which caught my eye was the one anklet that they wear on their feet. And in growing up in the 80s, I did see this anklet as a common occurrence, even in village folks in Andhra Pradesh as well. So I wanted to create this anklet, and instinctively I created the frame. I didn't imagine it to be so huge. And once the frame was ready, I had struggled a bit to keep it stable. And then the daunting task of having to cover up the entire thing with one leaf at a time. So in between, I wanted to see if I can make decorative patterns around it by folding just the leaves. But after a while, I felt that it was taking away from the subject, and I wanted to be more abstract. So I left it that way. And each time I tried to take a photograph, it appeared very different in each angle. So it is just a single one, but going around it, I started to see different shapes. And when I showed it to a lot of people, each one had their own interpretation, and that's when I started to enjoy it. And I thought this uh, 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 specific one, I called it as Vanaja Sanklet. So Vanaja is uh, the forest, or is the daughter of the forest. And this I intended to be the tribal women. But if you study the history, you would understand that tribals have always been exploited, first by the kings, subsequently by the British, and post independent India also. Probably the feudal landlords continue to exist, and even the state, when it went about building its modern temples like the dams and factories, it caused a lot of displacement for the tribals. Even the township that I grew up in, I remember reading an article that the people who were there before the township was built had to be displaced and pushed to the periphery of the township. So Gopinath Mohanty, this was the first person who wrote a novel about the plight of the tribals. It depicts the story of a tribal who's exploited by the landlord, and the police also don't help him. So I think this literature is about 120 years old now, and you would discover there are movies made by in the 70s as well. One movie is Akrosh, starring Nasiruddin Shah and Om Puri. So if you find time, you should look at it. It's a very good movie which uh, focuses on the plight of the tribals. Now, uh, when I kept reading more and more, I heard about Naxalism in the area where I grew up. So until 2005, when I last visited the place, no one ever heard of any violence. But now suddenly we heard that Maoists roamed the area, and uh, the tribals are caught in a conflict between the police and the Maoists. So they may not be participants to it, but they can be framed by the security forces. And things get complicated when post liberalization, the government uh, has a new belief that it has to monetize on or create industrialization in these less developed areas. One could be mining, encouraging mining of coal, bauxite for aluminium, and iron ore. And there could be like you're building more dams to get more water for the cities. Now, this photograph is about Kutia Cons who are protesting NALCO, which is state public sector undertaking to extract aluminium. So they believe in the hills being their gods, and they didn't want any exploitation of the hill or their natural habitat for extraction of ore. Now they get caught in this cross conflict. The security forces are provided with 2 lakh worth of this shields or uh, body armor. Now, my response was that when I read a news article that one of the tribal leaders was tortured in a police station and he died. So, my response was that more satirical way of saying that while you protect your security forces, what happens to the vulnerable tribals? So, I just stitched those leaves together and made a jacket, a bulletproof jacket, trying to say that for the tribals, this is the only means by which they can protect themselves. So the historically Niyamgiri Andolan, as it is called, was successful. because of international pressure. So they were able to petition, and external people got involved. And for a temporary 5-year period, I think they are safe, but we don't know how things will be in the future. So this was how the leaf jacket transpired to be. So I spoke about mining being one of the ways in which lush green forest and mountain can suddenly be raised down to a very shallow or deep gash in the earth, where nothing exists or will ever grow, just for the coal. And coal becomes a polluter. And India right now has almost 60% of its electricity generated from coal. And during the lockdown itself, I think this is a decades old problem where the government uh, has to take care of the environment. It also wants to pursue development. So this, if you have heard of Dantewada or Dandakaranya, it is the most densest forest of India and the oldest forest that you will have in India. Even the Ramayana mentions of it. Now, during the lockdown, they announced that these coal fields will be open for exploitation. So you will see the lot of conflict around the Naxalism or the Maoism originates from displacement of these tribals in these areas. So what people who were always dependent on the forest are now told that they have to abandon their ancestral home and then just move aside for the corporations or the government to take over and start mining. So it's not just about displacement, it's also about how it starts to affect the health of the people who have always stayed so rooted to the region. Now, they are dependent on the streams which emanates from these hills for their daily needs of water. And they also depend on the forest produce of this area. So the forest in this area can sustain the entire family for at least 6 months. So my response was remembering the story of Bhashmasura. So anybody in the audience who knows the story of Bhashmasura? Anybody who can narrate the story for the rest of us?
Anybody?
I'm sure some of you know.
Um, Anvesha said she can. So maybe Anvesha, you can unmute and share.
Anvesha Dubey said yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
Anvesha, you
Yes,
Sir, am I audible?
yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. So the story of Bhasmasur is that initially Bhasmasur was trying to get um, he worshipped and he
Yes,
उन्होंने बहुत तप किया कि उनको ये वरदान मिल जाए कि अ, उनको मतलब कोई भी जो उनकी चॉइस का वर हो वो मिल जाए उनको देन then Shivji was pleased by all his stuff and sacrifice. So he gave him this blessing that the whatever thing he touches, especially if he keeps hand on someone's head, that thing will get destroyed. So
yeah, will turn
वो
to ash.
भस्म हो जाएगी, will turn to ash. Yes, sir. So then he became so proud, and then he tried to destroy um, Lord Shiva himself. Uh, so to protect him, Lord Vishnu did this, and he changed himself into an avatar of Apsara, and then he asked him to copy the steps, the dance steps. Uh, so Bhasmasur, he was attracted to that Apsara, which was actually Lord Vishnu, and then he copied all the dance steps. And after that, he he destroyed himself as he was copying one of his dance poses, and he kept his hand on his head and destroyed himself and converted himself to ashes.
Right. Thank you so much. So
Yes.
the one on the right is a painting by Raja Ravi Verma of the same story. Now, I made my own interpretation. I used inspiration from the headgear of the tribals, which they use during rituals. And my first iteration was inspired by this thermal power plant coolant, which I always saw in my childhood on my way to Vishakhapatnam. So I would always wonder what that giant structure was, but never got an answer to it. So looking through the data, I felt that we as individuals are solely responsible for this, because we are the consumers. We need more and more energy, and that is what is causing this entire destruction of the environment. So you want power for your air conditioners, you want now power to charge your cars as well. So our energy dependence is causing us to turn into Bhashmasuras. So I feel that each one of us is nothing but a Bhashmasura in himself. And I added charcoal to the top to make it a little more demonic. And this again, I would say I'm not much of an extrovert, but this forced me to get into performance. I didn't have anybody else to pose for me with any elaborate dressing, but I wanted a modern interpretation, so I used myself as the model and adopted the same, tried to start dancing as well. So it's a good story about how you're forced to shed your inhibitions and move ahead. So this is again the story of Jharnia Cons. These are the people who stay maybe 50 kilometers away from where I grew up, and I didn't know of them until their movement to fight against Nalco, which was trying to encroach on one specific hill, which was of uh, very sacred for this community. So these people inhabit a very small region in those hills, but they refuse to move away. They said that their ancestral deity resides in those hills and they would not budge from there. So why they are the protectors of the stream. If you look at their their shawls, you can see very clearly that the hills are their, I mean, the most dominant symbol, and they worship the sun and the stream. The slanted lines are nothing but the streams. So they fought very vociferously against this encroachment by this private corporations. So you can see, despite their protests, the bauxite extraction continues to happen, and that hill that you see is the one which is under contention. So my response was, so one thing which you need to know about bauxite is that it is spongy. So the red mud can soak up a lot of water. So whatever rain happens during the monsoon, it gets soaked up, and this soil or ore releases the water slowly over the entire year. So a tribal doesn't have to go anywhere else. The springs and the streams which flow from the hill. So you can look at the scale of the hill. That hill provides for these streams which will last for the entire year. So these tiny streams coming from all these mountains are what create the rivers. Now these rivers are the ones which we are all dependent on for our agriculture, for our daily needs in the cities. Now what happens if you get rid of these mountains, and where will the water come for us as well? So The tribals are the first casualty, but in the long term, the casualty will be us. So I just created a pot out of it because I've always seen in towns and municipalities where you will have people lining up with those plastic pots and having fights with them. So I created a frame, and the frame twisted on its own. So the abstraction was taken care of by the medium. So I was, while I tried to create a perfect pot, the pot always disobeyed me, and it had its own path, and it took its own shape. And I really loved that part. So again, I continued with posing with me as the model. And so the last piece is again talking of tribal rights. So we are taught in history books that the first war of independence was 1857, when the Mughals, along with other kings, rebelled against the British. But what we don't know is that there was a Santal rebellion a decade earlier, and lots of times the tribals have vociferously fought against this British and their laws of trying to encroach on their forests and having to pay for taxes to the British. So there have been uh, lots of acts passed to uh, protect the rights of these indigenous communities. And during independence or before independence, there was a British anthropologist called Vernier Irwin, who Warrior Irwin, and he stayed with the Gonds in Madhya Pradesh. And post-independence, he had advised Nehru that they have their own independent structures and their own social values, and the newly formed democratic government should not interfere with their lives. So the Nehru government post-independence also advocated that unless the tribals want to be part of the mainstream society, they should be left on their own. But having said that, all the large dams that were built post independence, the public sector undertaking factories which were built, did cause a displacement. So they have been fighting. So the birth of Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand as independent states is also dictated because they have significant tribal population, and their culture or their values are not appreciated by the rest of the people, uh, the states who they had been with for so long. So there have been laws. One important law was the Forest Rights Act in 2006, which gave these communities the right to their forest, and no government can encroach on them unless villages in that surrounding agree to it. So it is the panchayat. So subsequent governments, they have been not implementing this law in practice because think of it like you're asking someone who has stayed in the forest for centuries to now provide a document or an Aadhaar card to prove that they are they are a tribal in that forest, right? So it is a little complicated, and that is what is the overall conflict. But the general approach of governments has been that you can compensate for whatever forest is lost because of development. So recent laws like the Compensatory Forestation Act or other things try to say that you can create a forest by doing a plantation elsewhere, which is not really a forest. It's merely a plantation. It's a monoculture, which cannot really sustain any wildlife or any. It is basically you're losing out on your biodiversity. So the photographs on the left is a sacred grove which is still intact. The mining has not encroached it, but the village has died. The village has been usurped, and the villagers have been moved somewhere else, promising them that they will get concrete houses. So the concrete house is something on the right, which is basically a structure with no windows. So you will have the tribals painting with leaves the windows there. So all of this made me, I started to remember the story of Ekalavya. Ekalavya was independent, self-learned. He could live on his own, and yet he was duped into departing with his thumb for someone else's benefit. So this is the same story which continues, where the indigenous communities are expected by the state to let go of their land and give it away to the government so that a corporation can come and benefit from it. And we can call it, you have numbers like GDP and everything to substantiate that it is development. But there is considerable data. There is research done which says very clearly that displacement and rehabilitation of tribals has not really benefited the tribals. So, from my own personal experience, if I were to tell you that in the 20 years that I grew up there, the tribals did not really benefit from the factory that was set up there. It was just an excuse. So I would say this prompted me to say that I took the idea of the sacrifice of the thumb by Ekalavya and created this structure. Again, I didn't imagine it would be so huge, but I ended up, as I started to build, I ended up with a huge structure. And again, to make it stable, I had to add a few layers more of broomsticks here and there. But overall, it was a lightweight. It was not very heavy. And then I laid the leaves over it. So I titled it as Ekalavya Likes Your Development, drawing inspiration from the Facebook like symbol where the thumb is cut off and does not have any more meaning about liking. So, what is it that I have really learned? So, this is a quote that I discovered when taking art classes during the pandemic as well. So, the pandemic opened up this conversation where every museum and art gallery started to invite artists and they gave talks. So, this was a quote about the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So for me, it was a revelation. This digging that I had done, I had uh, ventured off into 3D. I had enrolled into a course to study folklore and cultural heritage. And I discovered that there is nothing different between man and animal. All of us are the same. So, and animals themselves at times are more empathetic than us, as some of these photographs demonstrate here. So, I would say this was a journey of discovery of my own self, my own identity. I um, I am more of a migratory being. Like my father was a migrant, I am also a migrant. I have traveled all across India, but I don't have that very strong identity. But I have learned that I have to be able to understand that India is not a monoculture. It is a mix of cultures, and indigenous communities are probably the first Adimanav or Adivasi, what we call, are our progenitors or the people whose culture is influenced by nature. We, as people who have moved away from the forest, may not see it in the same way. But ideally, if we are able to look at nature and celebrate nature in the same way as tribals do, I think it is something which will help us uh, 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 take up the future, especially in the era of climate change. So, thank you for listening to me and my journey. This was a coin. So I was looking for a coin to make an pendant for myself because tribals have this way of creating jewelry out of coins that they come across. So I discovered that in 1985, the government was talking about development through forestry. So it is about ensuring that you have take good care of the forest, and the forest will actually support these communities in the future. So thank you. That is what I had to say. Any questions, then I can respond to them.
Wow, Ravi, this was really exciting. I don't come from a designing background, and I was thoroughly confused as to where is this conversation leading to. But towards the end, I was able to connect the dots in a beautiful way, and I think it was pretty inspiring, interesting to talk about discovery, the depth of the research that you've done. I'll be very honest. I expected your conversation to be more talking about technology, your experience with Airmeet, Intuit, all the companies that you've been associated with. And what you've shared is completely different and inspiring. So uh, pretty interesting work. And I think uh, in terms of setting the context for students and the approach to the work in terms of how do you discover design and how do you connect the dots, I think this was really beautiful.
Thank you.
So, guys, any questions from your side? Okay, so I have a question, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me.
As you have also pursued engineering, what difference do you find in work culture of engineering and designing?
Sorry, your voice was breaking. So can you repeat your question?
Ravi, if you can hear me, I'll just twist his question and ask you,
Yeah.
am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you bridge gap between the learning and experiences from all of this that you've been doing to, your technical work that you keep doing at Airmeet and otherwise? So how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, so I would say engineering is more of the logical reasoning and being more about saying being practical. So if I were to build a bridge, then I have to ensure that it is stable and it can last a lifetime, right? So in the same vein, when we talk about art, it is more of the empathy and expression, right? So when I come back to design, I think a lot of it is informed by the kind of explorations that you can do, which is not linear but tangential. So I would say that more than jumping into a straight away into something, you dig deeper into the why of it. So that is about the discovery of the problem, and you are not happy unless you have figured out what is you are able to pinpoint where exactly is the problem, and then you go about ideating or solutioning for what could resolve that problem. So I think it's a mix of all of this. So I would say encourage students or designers or rather engineers to be multidisciplinary. So not being single tracked, but people who can do a lot of stuff. So if you like music, you should be doing music, and a lot of those can inform your design, is what I would say.
Great. Others, anyone?
Sir, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Yug, and I'm a communication design student. So I just wanted to ask you that can you suggest some maybe some practices or activities that we can do it on a regular basis to improve our observation and on how we can extract the inspiration from nature?
Yeah, so I think there are lots of activities, right? So one is street photography. So about 8 years back, I was so deep into street photography that I would always be observing people. So it is again about observing how people live, what motivates them, and all that. So the other could be like you are just painting and sketching, right? So sketching is another exercise. I know a lot of friends who just go off over the weekend to some place and they just draw, right? So you are so when you are drawing, you are absorbing, you're observing, and trying to replicate the same. And again, others could be of just collecting, right? So I know people who may go to the beach and they just collect the shells that they come across when they walk on the sand. So the list is limitless. So it is about you being one with nature, and it could be simply that you are just listening to the birds. So I know people who go collect samples of sounds, and that is a different hobby altogether. So I would say whatever excites you, that is the one that you should follow. The thing that you stay up till late in the night or wake up very early morning to be able to do, that is something that you should always pursue.
That answers my question. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
We have time for one last question, or how's the time? How are we doing on time?
Yeah, sir, I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello, sir. I'm Madhumita and I'm a communication design student. So, throughout your presentation, there were a lot of structures made through leaves. So, my question is leaves are a very unconventional material to work with. So, what practical difficulties did you face while using them and how did you overcome them?
So I wouldn't say they are not practically used. I think I showed you examples where so it is unconventional in the means. So there is a philosophical thought, right? So that you want to use just eco-friendly material. So even in our practice, so after that I don't want to paint anymore using any manufactured colors. So I would say that I was not keen on preserving the art object. I was more keen on exploring what I can do with the constraint of just a leaf. So the leaf that I showed you is a siali leaf. It's a forest plant, and I was surprised by studying its properties. Like it could stay green for 2 months, okay, and if I were to keep it indoors, it would stay that dark brown, like I showed it to you. I still have them in my room. They are in the same color. Nothing has happened to it. Okay, it continues to stay that way, and I could never imagine that the leaf can stay for so long, and it's very sturdy also. So as an experiment, what I did was I took that final artwork that I created and placed it in the open. So in the open sun, it turned that bright red. And once it rained, nature took over. So because of the weight of the wet water, I think over a period of time, it crumbled like the one on the right. But it was a joy for me that whatever I created, it is now going back to the earth, and I have not affected anybody. So practical difficulties, I think it is just like you would be working with wood or you would be working with metal. You understand its properties and then you work with that constraint. So if I take the broomstick as an example, one end of the broom is very thin and very flexible. Other end is very rigid and it does not even bend. So when I am creating my frame, where I need a curve, I use the thinner side, and where I need rigidity, I use the thicker side.
That's interesting, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
So as we are near the end of this session, I would like to thank you, sir, for
Arthur
taking.
was sorry to interrupt. Sorry
Okay.
for the same. I think Jagriti raised her hand. Can you please give her an opportunity to ask the last question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
Yeah, hello, sir. So
Hey,
I don't, just a second, I need, yeah. So hello, sir. I don't have any question. I just wanted to share something.
yeah.
So I was in Bastar part of Chhattisgarh for more than 16 years, and I have seen all the evolution of Adivasis and how the hills are being depleted day by day. So I did a research project on the same topic, and I realized that the temperature of that place, the place is known as Baladela in Chhattisgarh. So the temperature of that place is increasing by 2% per year, and
I'm sorry, you're,
population.
yeah. So you hung up in between. Please continue.
Oh, okay, am I
Yeah, yeah.
audible now?
You are audible now,
Okay,
Jagriti. I
so
recommend just switch off the video so that there won't be any lag. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. So the temperature increased about 2% per year, and it is because of the iron ore mining that takes place there. So even in my portfolio, I have many projects related to Chhattisgarh, and when I share it with people, so the other people who don't know about things like the culture of Chhattisgarh, they are very fascinated about it. And I have realized that these things are very, very precious and it needs to be preserved. So me, my mom, and my dad's sister, we all are brainstorming like how we can preserve these things and we can showcase it to the world. So maybe in the future I will be connecting with you regarding the same and will be asking guidance from you.
Sure.
So
You can always reach out to me.
yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Great.
So,
Atharva, over to you.
okay, thank you, sir. So, again, as we are near the end of this session, I would like to thank you, sir, for taking out the time and sharing your journey with us. Surely there is a lot we can learn from indigenous communities. We wish you the best of luck for all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, and
Thank you
wishing
all.
you all the very same.
Yeah.